I'm going to start off with a quick poll, just so I can catch my breath more than anything else. And this poll should pop up on your screen now. So the question is, would taking on more staff who've been out of work during the COVID crisis help your organisation meet the needs of your community? Yes, demand is increased, but we need funding. Yes, but we need more support to adequately support new people. Yes, but we're currently we're not open, or we're currently unable to offer our full suite of services, or no, demand for our services has not increased. So if you select the most appropriate answer there, just give another 10 seconds or so for you to choose an answer. Okay, and Helen in the background is doing her magic. There we go. So you should now be able to see responses on your screen. Yes, demand for our services increased, but we need more funding to take on more staff. And yes, a good few of you also say need more support. So hopefully today we'll respond to some of those answers, and we'll be able to tell you a bit more about how you can engage with the Kickstart scheme and work with SCVO as well in partnership to provide support for these young people. Okay, I also want to give a nod before we move on to Community Jobs Scotland, just because I know we've got many of our CGS employers here with us today. CGS is a programme, Scottish Government grant funded programme that we have been running now for 9-10 years, and we've provided almost 10,000 paid work placements, well, you have as employers, for young people aged 16 to 29. So the last CGS job started at the end of September there, and we do await further information from Scottish Government about the future of CGS as part of the government's No One Left Behind policy. But I just want to say there are some similarities between CGS and Kickstart. They're both kind of employer recruitment incentives, wage schemes. They both aim to improve a young person's long-term employability. But I do want to stress that there are very clear differences, including eligibility of participants, duration of role and funded contribution. So we will cover this today. But what has struck us at SCVO is that we have a lot of learning that we can share from initiatives like CGS and previous to that with the New Deal, Future Jobs Fund, etc. So before Moira and Michael take us through the step-by-step detail of Kickstart, I also want to mention briefly the wider support that SCVO can offer your organisation as we recover from the pandemic. So on the second slide here, you can see a link to our coronavirus hub. So during coronavirus, Scotland's 40,000 voluntary organisations have really stepped up. They've fed tens of thousands of people. You've provided emotional, financial, practical support to keep people safe in the community. And it's clear that without the voluntary sector, our experience of lockdown would have been far worse. However, we're also aware that the voluntary sector has been hard hit by coronavirus. In Scotland, organisations expect to see a 30% drop in income, and half of all charities report they may run out of cash within 6 months. 20% of charities fear that they'll be unable to do the work they were set up to do at some point in the next 12 months. So schemes like Kickstart, where there's funded opportunities to bring new people in and to support young people, will hopefully be win-win. Traffic on our SCVO website has increased by 1,500% since coronavirus, and many of you have used the coronavirus third sector information hub that I've noted there on the slide. We'll continue to develop this hub for as long as it's needed, but I just wanted to flag, since we have so many people on the line today, if you haven't accessed this hub, it has guidance on funding available, including the recently opened Adapt and Thrive and Community Recovery Fund, and also the Connecting Scotland Fund, which provides iPads, Chromebooks and support to develop digital skills for people who are digitally excluded and on low incomes. The hub also provides guidance and practical resources as lockdown eases or restrictions come back into force again. Events and webinars like today, and information on how to support employees, how to move services to digital channels. And also we're really delighted to announce that later this month we'll be launching an HR and employment support service for voluntary organisations across Scotland. So keep an eye out for that. Not forgetting, of course, the day-to-day support that SCVO can provide, such as payroll, furlough claims, IT support and jobs advertising on Good Moves. So anyway, on to why we're all here today. This is about supporting young people into positive and hopefully sustainable long-term employment. So if you could move the slide on for me, please. Several of you will be aware of sort of lengthy reports that have now been published from UK and Scottish Government, most notably the Advisory Group on Economic Recovery and the Economy and Skills Strategic Board reports. This has triggered kind of numerous programmes and schemes to try and mitigate the impact of the pandemic on employment over the months to come. And some of those I've captured on this slide, but I'm not going to go through them all one by one. But it's fair to say that until these are all up and running and operational, there's still lots of questions about the implementation and how these will work over the coming months, and of course how they align to existing initiatives already out there. Many of you will have heard of No One Left Behind, which is the policy long before coronavirus was heard about, really, promised a flexible, person-centred approach that's easy to navigate. So SCBO, along with the Third Sector Employability Forum, is representing the voluntary sector on a number of No One Left Behind work streams. And I'd encourage you, if you haven't already, to join the TSEF forum. Just drop me an email or check it out on our website. There's over 100 employers now on this forum, and it's a great opportunity to find out about what's going on in the employability space. The UK Youth Employment Group says that 1,000 extra employment training or education opportunities are needed every single day now to bring the number of young people not in education, employment or training back to pre-crisis levels by October 2021. So there's a big task ahead of us. The only other one initiative I wanted to quickly mention is the Scottish Young Person Guarantee, which you will have heard about. There's a real focus here on how we stimulate the demand side of the labour market in Scotland. So Sandy Begbie's Young Person Guarantee report states that the public sector, private sector, colleges, universities and the third sector all need to play a role in helping to create opportunities. And the ambition is that every young person aged between 16 and 24 in Scotland will be guaranteed the opportunity to go to university or college, an apprenticeship programme, training, fair employment, including work experience, or participating in a formal volunteering programme. He says the Young Person Guarantee should not have an end date. In fact, should be the way that we manage youth employment in Scotland going forward. So they also do talk about a wage incentive scheme, not to be confused with Kickstart. They talk about a 50-50 wage incentive scheme to support the most vulnerable young people into paid jobs, but details about how that scheme will work have not been published yet. However, SCBO does sit on the implementation group and will share information as soon as it's known. I suspect that it will be operated, or certainly funds managed, through local authorities or local employability partnerships. But one thing is certain, though, there does need to be better alignment all round. And of course, any Scottish scheme like this should align with the UK Kickstart scheme. So before we get into Kickstart, I want another very quick poll, please. And this poll is to test or to understand your interest in the Kickstart scheme. So really, why are you here today? Is it that you'd like to apply for over 30 job placements, or you're thinking about that? Would you like to apply for less than 30 jobs through an intermediary like ourselves? Would you like to act as an intermediary yourselves? Or unsure, you're just kind of here to find out a bit more? So if you can select the most appropriate answer, please. I'm getting messages through as I do this saying that people's internet's going down. So thankfully, it's not just me. Okay, an overwhelming response there that most people are interested in applying for less than 30 jobs, up to 30 jobs through an intermediary like SCBO. Good stuff. You're in the right place then. So I'm going to tell you a bit of a basic overview about the principles of Kickstart, and then hand over to Moira to talk about some more detail, and then I'll take a big deep breath. So Kickstart basics, if you could move the slide on, please. As I say, pop any questions into the Q&A and we'll do our best to answer them. Michael's in the background. I suppose it's really important to note here that DWP have developed and launched Kickstart very, very quickly, quicker than any other scheme I've ever seen. So there are still some unknowns. We might not know the answer. DWP might, in fact, not even know the answer yet, but we can always take questions away with us. We're in regular meetings now with colleagues at DWP. So Kickstart, £2 billion UK government scheme. It aims to create 6 months long jobs for 16 to 24-year-olds, and the aim is to help them develop their core skills needed to move into sustained employment. The jobs are 100% funded at national minimum wage for the appropriate age, that is, and that's for 25 hours a week. You have to evidence that they are new jobs, they're additional jobs, and that they won't replace existing or recently advertised jobs or put other employees at risk. And again, Moira will go into a bit more detail about this. In terms of eligibility, candidates who can apply have to be on universal credit, and they will be referred by Job Centre Plus work coaches only. So the only way for a young person to access this scheme and find out about jobs available is through their work coach. That may change over time, but at the moment, that's the way it's set up. And I'm led to believe that, in fact, yesterday, the first batch of jobs went live on the DWP systems that the work coaches use. Jobs can start from November onwards. And then if we can move on to the next slide, thank you. There is no limit on the number of jobs you can apply for, but you are expected to fully support the young person, and therefore you must have the capacity to do so. If you wish to apply for less than 30 jobs, you need to go through an intermediary representative or a gateway organisation. SCVO is now set up and is able to act as a gateway representative, and we can apply on your behalf. We can assess your eligibility as a suitable employer. We can help you with the job and assess the job eligibility. We would manage the grant agreement, i.e. the grant agreement would be between ourselves, SCVO and DWP. And we would also manage all the payments and providing an element of support as well. We are planning offering a comprehensive package of wraparound support, or employability support, as it's also called, which would benefit and support both you as the employer and also contribute to the core skills development for your employee or employees. We have submitted our first batch of jobs, I think 80 or so, in the last week. We haven't heard back anything yet. We're told it's about a month or so in terms of a turnaround time. The first batch, though, might take a bit longer to process because DWP will be processing our intermediary application as well. We do plan to, depending on the demand, obviously, we plan to submit batches as regularly as we can. The last job placement deadline is December 2021, so that means the last job has to start in December 2021. So that was a quick fire of the overarching points. Moira's now going to go into a bit more detail about how you can get involved, what information do we need and do you need, and the step-by-step process. Thank you, Moira. Are you still on mute, Moira?
Trying to get myself unmuted here. So good morning again, everybody. Good morning. As Lorna had said earlier, there are still a number of unknowns with regards to DWP's requirements for the scheme in terms of the processes and procedures, and particularly for the gateway organisations. I think we've gone through quite a range of names for the, if you want, the representatives or intermediaries. So at the moment we're now being called gateway organisations. So as Lorna had also said, we have had regular questions going into DWP, into their Kickstart team, in terms of just those processes and procedures. So again, as Lorna had mentioned, at this stage we have submitted a pilot Kickstart application, and that was with 10 employers, and it was to create 84 jobs. Those 84 jobs are spread throughout the year, but about approximately 48 of those jobs were looking to be started between November and December. And we're going to use this as, in effect, a pilot to help inform us on the level of detail that's required on the submissions, and also on any further process developments that we need to make. As it stands, this really is the journey that we envisage for each job created for the scheme, with ourselves acting as that gateway organisation. And we intend to use our Salesforce CRM portal to complete this whole end-to-end process, so that everything is completed in that one place. So for employers who are interested in creating a jobs through ourselves as that gateway organisation, what we would start off is with a registration form. Now, what I'm actually going to do at this point now is stop this and hopefully upload the screen to show you our registration form. So here we go. Yay, got that done. That wasn't so bad. So this is the registration form. It's a web form that we have developed, and it's sitting on our website, as you can see there. If you want the registration trail there for it. We'll obviously be sending this link out on e-bulletins and various other forms as well. So through this registration process, what we're looking to do is to ensure that the organisations that we're working with are third sector organisations, and that they are also compliant employer organisations and are capable of employing a young person through the period of the Kickstart contract. So for the first part of the registration form, what we're looking at is we're looking at the organisation to ensure that they are a legitimate third sector organisation. So this will include us looking at things like the charity number, the company house number, the area that they work in, and also the status of that organisation, you know, whether or not they're a charity or a social enterprise or a SKIO, etc. Then we obviously go on to look at their ability to employ staff, and this includes us looking at to see if they have a compliant payroll system. We're looking at existing staff numbers. We're looking to see, do they have the appropriate policies and procedures in place, and are they up to date as well, because that's always a big one, because, you know, although somebody's maybe created a policy, they might have created it back in 1980 and never looked at it since. So we need to be sure that those policies are relevant to today. The other areas and the other things that we will also have a look at are contracts of employment, and also your employer's liability insurance. Then we actually go on and we ask if you are actually involved in any other Kickstart applications as well. Now, this may not preclude you from being part of our application, but what we need to ensure is that you can support all the jobs that you have created, and that the jobs are not being duplicated across several applications, because this is something that DWP will obviously pick up on. And then finally, we go on to our last 3 questions. Now, those 3 last questions are based, again, on questions that are within the Kickstart application that we have to complete. So they're based around the basic skills development, around job search, training, and also support. Again, the answers that you provide to us with this will not preclude you from creating any jobs. They're there basically to help us to identify the overall support, and also to identify any gaps that we can support with as well. So when you submit this application, then that will obviously come through to us, and one of our team will actually assess it. So when the assessors are looking at it, they will always come back to you for any further information if there's any doubt or any issues that are raised from that. Okay, so, and as I said, this is sitting on our website at the moment, but we will obviously share links to that as well. So going back to our presentation, okay. So jobs and the job descriptions. Now, again, Lorna had mentioned it, and you probably find me mentioning a lot of things repeatedly that maybe Lorna has mentioned, but it's always good to reinforce. But so as Lorna had said, each of the jobs that are created need to provide at least 25 hours of work and pay the national minimum wage rate for the age of that young person. But that doesn't mean that you can't offer more than 25 hours and pay above the national minimum wage rate. It's just really more that that you won't get funded for that difference. Also, each of the jobs must be new and they can't replace existing or planned vacancies or cause existing employees or contractors to lose or to reduce their employment. So this is very much a question that we are asked on the Kickstart application, and we need to demonstrate that these jobs are new for each of the employers. So having the employer confirm that the job is new it's just not enough. So with the employers on the pilot application that I made, I asked them to think about and to consider if they had any changes to the workforce in the last 6 months and why. So for example, they may have had redundancies, or they may have had to change the hours of some of their existing staff. I also asked them to think about the number of people who are affected by that change, and also the kind of roles and functions that were affected. Also, I asked if they would be able to create these jobs without the Kickstart funding, and also thinking about any recruitment that they've completed, started or paused in the last 6 months. And that was also to think about, the vacancies that they were recruiting, were they roles that were similar to roles that they're looking at creating through the Kickstart programme. And again, that last one around the Kickstart roles, are they going to be similar, to have a think about, are they going to be similar to any existing or planned roles, or roles that were previously done by people who maybe have been made redundant? So those were all questions that I had put there to the employers to have a think about and to consider. And from this, I asked them to provide me with 1 or 2 lines relating to those questions. So they may have come back to me to say that no, they've not had any redundancies, and the jobs obviously are new to the organisations and they wouldn't exist without that funding. But then we've also had some that have come back to say that, some people have sadly had to be made redundant, but those redundant jobs were in areas of the business where the Kickstart jobs would not be involved. So that's the kind of thing that we were coming back with and that we were putting forward. What we're also looking to do is to put in for a wide range of jobs, basically from administration to youth work jobs and anything and everything in between, because we know that the sector can pretty much create any job type. So, job descriptions. They will be forwarded to DWP and uploaded onto their Universal Credit portal. And again, as said previously, they will only be accessed by the Job Centre work coaches, and they are the only referrers for the jobs at this stage. As Lorna had mentioned, there may be some changes. They're particularly looking at the 16 to 18 age range, because quite a lot of that age range won't be entitled to universal credit. So there are discussions going on just now around how they may be able to look at referring those young people. Okay, but what we don't know yet in terms of the job descriptions is what they actually completely want and how this is going to be done, and the format of the job descriptions for us in order to forward them on to the Job Centre. So for us, in terms of the job descriptions, we're looking at I suppose it's a basic job description at this point. So the basics that we would look for within a job description are the job title with its purpose and the duties and the responsibilities of the role, and also person specification. What we do say is always please remember that although these young people are deemed work ready, many of them may have little to no work experience. So always bear that in mind, when you are creating that and writing that job description. Other information that we would be looking to include would be around things like the location of the job. Now, I know that somebody had submitted a question on their registration for this event about home working. Now, given the changes that have been going on over the last 6 months with regards to people working from home, this we would envisage would partly be something that could be considered for young people coming through Kickstart, as long as the resources and support were in place for that young person to work from home, and that this was something that other members of staff within the organisation were doing. Other information we would be looking for is, again, name supervisor, information around disclosures or PVG requirements, and also the application process. Again, the Job Centre are wanting that to be as fairly easy as possible. So that could be things like, so if you're looking to receive CVs with a covering letter, or maybe using an application form. Job Centre have a standard application form that they use, or many employers do use, and I would suspect that would be something that they would be keen for employers to use. Okay, going forward onto the actual Kickstart application that we submit. So, as again Lorna had mentioned, jobs can be created and filled between November of this year and December of 2021, with the last young people completing their contracts by the end of June of 2022. We intend to make applications on an ongoing basis throughout this period as and when required. So when you're thinking of creating your jobs, you can do so thinking about the immediate future or thinking about the whole Kickstart time period. Therefore, you can also submit your jobs on an ongoing basis or one at a time, or sorry, what I meant was all of them at the one time. But again, what you would do at each point as you're submitting your jobs is specify when you would want each of the jobs to start. We obviously then, as Lorna had mentioned, was that we would submit the applications and they are saying a month's turnaround on the assessment. And as Lorna had said, we suspect that with that first pilot application we've made, it will take a bit longer because obviously they are still getting staff into place, and as you can imagine, there'll probably be quite a heavy submission of applications in this initial stage. But as soon as we receive information back, then obviously we would get back to the employers involved. So the application, it will go forward, and then we would then move, once we receive the grant back, then we would move things forward onto the recruitment stage. So once we have had it approved, we would be notified by a central team in DWP in Scotland, and we would be issued with a grant agreement. We would also then issue each of the employers with a memorandum of understanding. So again, they're aware of what their responsibilities are, as obviously with ourselves as well. And at this point, then the job description would then go forward to DWP for inputting onto the Universal Credit Portal. I've kind of got to keep repeating myself here, saying that only the job coaches and work coaches can refer. What they're also looking to do for the applications as well is that they're looking at a maximum of between 5 and 7 applications for each job. So again, don't expect that you're going to get, 5 and 7. You may only receive 1 or 2. It just depends on what the young people that they're working with on their caseloads are actually looking for. Now, throughout this period, this recruitment period, what we're looking to do is to work with both the employers and with DWP to ensure that this is a smooth process and that the recruitment is completed in a timely fashion. So we are wanting and to ensure that employers are receiving applications, and if they're not, we're going to try and work with DWP to find out what's happening, what's going on, so that we can try and ensure that every single job going forward is given that opportunity, and that each young person gets that opportunity to take up the jobs as well. The job applications for each of these Kickstart jobs will go directly to the employers, and they will shortlist and interview for their chosen candidate. There also is an expectation that there will be some feedback provided for each of the interviewees, particularly the unsuccessful, again, so that Job Centre Plus work coaches can work with these young people in terms of addressing any identified needs around the interview process or around maybe skill requirements that are still deemed as missing. Candidate eligibility for Kickstart is that it's fairly straightforward at this point in time. It's basically that they have to be in receipt of universal credit and at least 1 day unemployed and potentially could become long-term unemployed. And that decision is very much up to the work coaches as to, you know, for them making that decision around a young person being eligible for the programme. So we can't have maybe a young person being directed by an employer to go and you know, have their application completed to forward directly for them only to take up that job. Yes, an employer, if they have young people that they're working with and who they think are eligible, they can certainly say to them to go to their work coach and to speak to their work coach, but it would be the work coach that makes that final decision. Okay, so moving on to the on programme. So as a gateway organisation, we have a responsibility to notify DWP of all the starts and leavers. So a young person is not deemed as a start until they are put onto the employer's payroll system and have a PAYE number. And when we have received this information and have forwarded it on to DWP, then the initial payment will be released. We have and are continuing to work to develop a support service for both the employee and the employer, as Lorna had mentioned earlier, and we will discuss that in a wee bit more detail shortly. The next step as well is around the employer payments. And again, there's a wee bit of the unknown around this. So what we do know is that HMRC and DWP are looking to cooperate with information sharing in relation to the payments. So the wage payments will be definitely for the 25 hours per week and at the national minimum wage rate for the young person employed, along with the employer's national insurance and the employer's minimum auto enrolment contributions. So as I said, there also gets to the extent where there is some confusion with regards to DWP as to when the payments are going to be released, because we have been told at one point that they're going to be forwarded to us at the end of the 2nd, the 4th and the 6th month. But then at one point we were also told that it would only be at the end of the 3rd and the 6th month. So there still seems to be a wee bit of confusion, but we're very much taking it to be the end of the 2nd, the 4th and the 6th month, because that is what is being stated in the UK government website. So that's what we're working on. So again, there does seem to be a wee bit of the unknown here in terms of evidence that DWP are looking for in terms of that. But what we're going to do is we're going to obviously look to try and keep that as light touch as possible so that we can ensure that payments are processed into your accounts, the employer's accounts, as quickly as possible. We will need to also notify DWP of all leavers, including the early leavers, and as a minimum we would obviously require the date of leaving and the destination and the reason for that young person leaving. And then the last part that we have there, as you can see, I've got a big question mark beside it, is around tracking. Again, this is a very big unknown. We don't know at this point. We have asked the question, haven't had any reply to it yet in terms of tracking. So we don't know if there's an expectation at this point in terms of us having to move things along and track where the young person has moved on to as well. So that's a one for look and see what happens. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, if I can. Whoops, I've gone too far there. So As Lorna had mentioned again, we are looking at providing a wraparound support service for the employers and the employees. So basically what we want is we want all third sector organisations across Scotland to have the potential to offer a Kickstart job. So this is organisations who are very small right through to the very large, from the very new organisations to the established organisations. And we know that this can be done by filling gaps and enhancing on existing support. So at SCVO, and particularly within our Employment Services Department, we have a core team that has built up experience over the last 22 years. And this is where Michael's age comes into it. So over the last 22 years, we've been working on the voluntary sector option of New Deal through to Future Jobs Fund and onto the Community Jobs Scotland programme. So Michael keeps claiming he's only 16. Yeah. We have to add a few more onto that. So particularly, we've learned a lot through this time, and particularly from the Community Jobs Scotland programme, where we can add value in assisting the young people to move forward. And this is done through providing additional support, both for the employee and also for the employer. And it's also in us being flexible and adaptable in order to deal with their holistic needs as well. So as I said, we have a package of support that will continue to develop over the life of the Kickstart scheme, and this is done through identifying needs and from information that we're gathering in from discussions like from today. So through discussions that we have with employers and employees, this will help inform our package of support. So I'm going to cover a couple of things just now that we're looking to do. So one of them is we're looking to create separate Kickstart employee and employer forums where employees and or employers will be able to meet each other, to chat, exchange ideas, air concerns, and also to receive details on available job opportunities from across the country, because we get information on programs of recruitment that are coming up, and this is something that we obviously want to share with the employers and the employees. Another thing that we're looking to do is that each of the employees would also have access up to 5 training webinars or events, and these will cover quite a wide range of topics, again building on information that we already have and identified needs. So that can go from covering various employability skills, it can go from opportunities likes of customer service skills, managing difficult situations, through to things like your emergency first aid, also mental health training and maintaining well-being. So that's just a few. There are more, and we're looking obviously to develop more there, and also working with employers who have developed training and worked with us in developing training to offer to other organisations and employees. Also, each of the young people on leaving at the end of their contract, they're going to receive a progression certificate. Now this is done from and created from information that is provided from each of the employers via a survey, and this is looked at the young person's development through their contract period. And what we're asking the employer to do is to look at, if I remember rightly, it's 6 different areas. So that includes team working, their communication, problem solving, their professionalism, their personal qualities, and also, where it's relevant, their IT skills and development around that. And from this information, we will create a certificate that will then go forward to that young person, and they can use that in demonstrating that skill development that they have developed over that 6-month period. Okay, so now I'm going to pass you back to Lorna, who will talk about a couple of the other options within this package that will be available as well.
Thanks, Moira. Still here, thankfully. Yes, so we've been thinking long and hard really about what this package might entail, and so this is where we're really keen to get your feedback as to what this package looks like for you, and where there are gaps, where there are areas that we could add further value, because there are as last I looked, 600 or so intermediary gateway organisations out there. So it's absolutely your choice which intermediary or several intermediaries you use, depending on your needs, the jobs, the type of support that you're looking to get. So some gateway organisations are choosing to enter into this kind of purely transactional relationship with employers, in that the gateway organisation gets the basic admin fee, they submit your application, but that's it. And others are looking to do the full shebang, really. So per placement, each placement gets a £1,500 wraparound costs, if you like, employability costs. So some intermediaries are keeping the full £1,500 and providing all services on behalf of the employer. So our thinking so far, and from our experience, as Moira says, of CGS and feedback from employers so far, is that many of you are looking for this kind of more of a hybrid model, whereby we have a kind of partnership working approach. We provide you with services, support for you and the employee, but you also get we're working at £1,000 of that £1,500 per placement for any setup costs you have, any materials, any equipment, any training or development costs needed that are specific to that particular role or that particular individual. As Moira says, some of the more generic courses, training, networking opportunities, forums, we will provide as part of our wraparound support. The reason we're thinking this is the best approach is that we can offer sort of economies of scale there. We can tap into networks that we already have. We can get discounted rates on training, and we can also build a sort of community of employers and employees who are accessing this, and tap that into the wider SCVO community. So a couple of other things that we thought could be included in this package would be some wider benefits. So we're offering a free DigiHelp support call to help your organisation make better use of digital. So that's one of our Digitech experts. We also want to talk lots about Kickstart and Kickstart Scheme and discuss with Scottish Government and partners in our other forums how we align it with the Youth Guarantee and other initiatives out there. So we're keen to get case studies and work with employers like yourself to highlight and showcase the benefits of Kickstart. There are peer networking opportunities already existing and future ones as well. An example being an advisory group that we've set up for employment support in Scotland and our policy network. And also, you know, we're keen to involve employers or expose employers to wider benefits within SCVO. So that includes SCVO membership if your turnover is less than £50,000, or it's a sliding scale if your turnover is more than that. And that opens up and accesses a whole host of other benefits, including access to our new HR and employment support service, Funding Scotland updates, TFN magazine discounts, e-bulletins, etc. And the other one I missed was one free job ad per organisation on Good Moves, our recruiting site, which is now back up to the levels of jobs it was at a year ago. It took a big dip there when coronavirus hit, but obviously now there's lots of people out there looking for jobs, so we're getting 75,000 hits on that website. So lots of wider benefits for organisations as well, but we are keen to know what's missing, where else could we add value here, where could we use that economy of scale, bringing together a large number of organisations and an even larger number of young people to learn from this scheme, to offer support in a wide and varied way, and to use us as a kind of mechanism to feed that back to Scottish Government and other partners. So do let us know in the chat if you've got any thoughts on that. The one other thing I should say is, I think Moira touched on this, is that we're also keen to hear from employers out there, any of yourselves that already provide employability services in terms of training or webinars or specialised courses that may be applicable to other young people, other Kickstart placements in other organisations. We're keen to talk to organisations who might be able to offer wider sessions across Scotland. And again, we could act as that intermediary to coordinate and organise those sessions. Thank you, Moira. I see Michael's doing a pound of work on the Q&As there. 50 plus questions answered so far. So hopefully all your questions are being answered in the Q&A, and if not, keep them coming.
And for those of you that know me, please check that the answers are correct.
I wondered, Michael, since you're there, would it be worth you giving us a flavour of some of the jobs, without naming any names, of the types of jobs that we've submitted in the last batch? Because there were some really interesting ones, actually.
We've had some amazing jobs coming in, from science educators delivering STEM workshops, to jobs in the creative arts, to digital type jobs, to retail, a cosmic care worker. Some of the job titles have been amazing. Some of the jobs information that some of the employers have sent through have been great. And I suppose a lot of them are very similar to the jobs that we have had on Community Jobs Scotland, where employers have went that wee bit further to make sure that young people are getting a great experience and getting a job that needs to be done. So, yep, there's quite a few jobs there, and employers have come back to us asking, could we create this type of job? Lot of care work, carer centres, the usual employers that we're working with, and a lot of new ones. So no, we've had quite a variety of jobs and some interesting job titles.
Can I just add in terms of the job titles, it's just something to always be a wee bit wary of, is the job titles as well, because a lot of people will make decisions about jobs they want to apply for straight away from the job title. So if it's not an understandable job title, it may actually put people off. So sometimes where, you know, you have a title that's a little bit obscure and you can't quite make out what it was from that, or, you know, what's involved in the job, then it's maybe worth reconsidering. So, you know, it's great, you know, some of the titles, but if it's not understandable, just maybe have a wee think about that. So sorry if I'm kind of putting people off in terms of some of their original titles there.
Yeah, I think just as you're saying, Moira, I do know that sometimes Job Centre Plus have come back to us with some of our jobs where the job title looks quite extravagant, and they maybe don't think that they can fill the job. But I suppose that as long as the information's there and what the actual job consists of, it does make it a lot easier for us as well to sell that job to DWP.
Yeah.
I see there's a few questions coming in there around the £1,000 or the £1,500 and what that money can be used for. It's fair to say that DWP have been pretty vague about what that money can be used for, and even at the point of job submission, we do have to say that we're requesting it on, you know, or the employer's requesting it, and loosely what it's for. But at this point, we haven't been asked for itemised breakdowns of what that money would be spent on. That said, I would strongly encourage people to be clear about what they want to utilise that money for, just in case, even if it's not asked up front, retrospectively, there might be an ask for, you know, what did you spend that money on? Can you evidence that? They loosely say setup costs, training, support costs. I don't think it can be used to top up to living wage, but you are entitled to top up to living wage yourself if you so desire to do so. But I don't think, Moira, correct me if I'm wrong, that money can be used for that purpose. Although I do think it can be used for other expenses like travel and, you know, if there's additional, you know, counselling support costs. Is that right, Moira?
That's our understanding at this point in time, because one of the things that has not been very clear as well is if, I mean, it has been mentioned before about evidence for the use of that money, but again, they've not actually stated how they would want that evidenced. So, you know, in terms of using the money to top up a living wage, as it stands at the moment, I would say probably not, but I would certainly be happy to take that one back to ask DWP if it can be used for that type of thing as well. And I see somebody else, Kevin, you were asking if it can simply be a contribution towards existing staff costs. Again, I would say, for me, that's the kind of thing that for a lot of people it would be looking to do. You know, if it's existing staff costs in terms of the support of that new employee, then yes, I would see that being. Again, it's to what degree they're looking for that evidence. Are they going to be looking for, you know, a kind of breakdown in terms of that money? You know, are they looking for you to literally say, I spent £100 on this and £300 on that? We don't actually know. So once we have that, we can provide that more information. One of the other things that has been, and I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but one of the things that has been said by DWP is in terms of that initial fund coming through, that £1,500, if a young person leaves their jobs early, whether that's for a positive reason or a negative reason, that £1,500 would not be taken back by DWP. So that's what they're saying at the moment on that as well.
Some useful stuff coming through in the chat as well from people around where there may be gaps there in or where we could consider our wraparound package, looking at mentoring and support there. So we'll make sure and follow up on those.
Excellent. I think, Laura, you've mentioned, I swear I can't see if the questions are being answered. You've mentioned that you have submitted an application, a registration for ourselves. So we will have it. We will be assessing. As you can imagine, we've probably had quite, well, not probably, we have had quite a number of registrations in already, and we are following that. As I did say earlier, because of quite a number of the unknowns, we didn't want to go down the line of overburdening the employers with lots and lots of questions. So that's why I submitted that pilot application, using some of the basic information that we know that they are asking for at this point in time, and seeing what comes from that. So this is going to help inform our next steps in what's needed. But obviously we don't want to wait, you know, forever and a day to hear back from that. So we are looking at the next steps that we will take to progress each of the registrations that have been assessed.
Now we're going to keep answering the questions as we go, but just I noticed some people are having to shoot off, so I would like to just do one last poll before people start to drop off from the call. So now that you've heard a bit more about the scheme and the service that SCVO offers, what are your thoughts? Still kind of keen to apply? Are you looking at over 30 jobs doing it yourself? Looking at under 30 jobs, looking at pursuing being an intermediary yourselves or something else? Just give another 10 seconds or so. I can hear Michael frantically typing away in the background there. You're earning your keep today, Michael. Let's have a look at that. Good stuff. So, yep, still an appetite to apply for less than 30 jobs through an intermediary, and we'll consider SCVO. So we're all learning with this, and it's fair to say that colleagues in other organisations, in DWP, in across the sector are learning as well. So what we're keen to do is maximise this opportunity to get as much for the young person and for the sector as possible. So as I say, we'll keep answering some questions, but before I sign off, I'd like to just say thank you. Thank you to all of you for attending today. Thank you for making Michael work so hard with all your questions. There will have been some that we maybe couldn't fully answer, we'll take away, and we will keep publishing more updates on our website or on our bulletins. I'd also like to thank Michael and Moira for their contributions today, and to our events team who silently in the background are keeping me from hyperventilating throughout it all. So thank you to them. It may be that there's a need for another session in a few weeks, a month or so time, when we've got through our first batch of submissions and we've learned from the process, and we can understand a bit more about timelines, turnaround times, a bit more about what's needed. At this point in time, we haven't even seen a copy of the grant agreement because DWP haven't released that agreement yet. So there may be some hidden unknowns in that grant agreement that we then need to very quickly translate and work out a way of agreeing that with the employers that we work with. But I think we're fairly confident, having run CGS for so many years now, that we've got a good system in place. We've got a good infrastructure in place to be able to run a service like this and offer and get payments out quickly to employers as and when required. So I am going to sign off for the moment. I'll stay online. We'll keep answering the questions. We've got 13 or so to respond to. So stay online if you want to see the answer to those or add any further thoughts. But in the meantime, you have our, if we could go on to the last slide, that shows our email address and our web page, and you're welcome to contact us through there. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Do you want to pop it onto the last slide, Moira?
Yeah, can do it.
Thanks.
Okay. Tony,
Whoops.
Not sure what happened there. There we go, back. Tony, can I just answer your question, because you were asking who do we contact to provide support to other employers. We have an email address there, kickstart@scvo.org.uk. So I would say in the first instance, if you drop us a wee email, and then we'll pick it up and come back to you and have a wee chat. Jane, you were asking us to clarify the cost for each Kickstart young person. So can I just say that what's going to be funded by DWP in terms of the job is that they will fund the young person the national minimum wage rate for that young person's age. So that will vary depending on the age, because at the moment there's like 4 age ranges, if I remember rightly, for the national minimum wage rate. You've got your under 18s, your 18 to 20, your 21 to 24, and your 25 plus rates. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what all the rates are currently. But they will fund that. They will also fund the employer's national insurance contribution, and also the employer's minimum auto enrolment contributions as well. So that will then be paid to the employer on that, as we said, looking at it being at the end of the 2nd month, the 4th month, and the 6th month. So it would probably come through in terms of the way it gets processed by DWP. It would probably be going into the 3rd month, the 5th month and the 7th month in terms of the way that they process it. But we want to see that come through as quickly as possible for each of the employers. We would also then, as Lorna had mentioned, in terms of the £1,500 wraparound support, what we would look to do, and as she mentioned there, that we're looking at using £500 of that towards the wraparound, the comprehensive wraparound support that's being offered via ourselves. and the £1,000 from that would go directly to yourselves from us, or forwarded directly to yourselves from us, as soon as we get confirmation and that the young person is on your payroll system. So hope that helps answer. Peter Gilbert, you had asked if we can apply through SCVO for 2 batches of 30 jobs, or do you have to go direct? What I would say to that is, I mean, you can obviously, if you wanted to apply for the jobs yourselves, there is absolutely no reason to stop you from doing that. But again, I would probably say if you wanted to apply for 30+ jobs through ourselves as well, we don't see there being an issue with that either. And how you wanted to apply for them would be very much determined by yourselves. As I said, what we anticipate is that some employers would put in what they're thinking for the whole time frame at one go, and others will do it on an ongoing basis as to when they identify their needs. So that can be very much determined by yourself. So I hope that helps answer your question. Don't know, Michael, can you see any unanswered questions? or are you totally up on speed? You're on mute, Michael.
There's still 12 opened, but a lot of them are duplicates of questions that we've already answered.
Oops, I keep changing the screen.
Yeah, there's 11 still unanswered, but we've covered them more or less in the other questions, I think.
Excellent. Okay, what I would also say is if because I know what I'm like when I've attended any events or anything, I always think of the questions afterwards. So again, please do get in touch with us if you do have any questions. We've got the Kickstart email there, and I'll give out my phone number because I know the rest of the team would probably kill me. So my direct line here is 07968 065 552. So if anybody wants to talk, then you can call that number. Or alternatively, if you wanted to email us and ask us to give you a ring back, we can obviously do that as well.
There's a question there about the job description isn't needed immediately up front, is it? You just complete the registration form as is. Yeah,
absolutely.
We'll come back to people to ask for any additional information that's needed when it's needed. So yeah, I would recommend complete the registration form just to get, you know, on the list, if you like, and then we'll be able to work out how many the different batches that we could submit and at what point. So that's the best way of doing it. Thank you.
Also, Daniel, you've asked if young people are limited to one Kickstart job. I believe that is what they're looking to do, because obviously what they're looking to do is that the young person has developed skills in order for them to progress into more sustainable jobs. So that's their aim. Where they have said that a young person could maybe do more than one Kickstart job is where the job falls through for any reason. So, you know, it does happen where somebody maybe starts a job and then realizes this isn't what they want, or maybe the employer realizes that the young person isn't going to be a fit for them. So in that case, the young person can give up the job. Then they would go back to their work coach, and what we're being told is that the work coach can look to find an alternative opportunity for that young person. That would then not stop the employer from having their opportunity re-advertised. And what they're also saying is that what they anticipate is, depending on where the young person is through their contract period, if it's in the early stages, what DWP are saying is that if the young person moves into another job, chances are they would have the full 6 months again.
could a savvy young person move on from one job to next if they have a good relationship with their work coach? Although in saying that, they have to be unemployed for how long before they're eligible?
They only have to be eligible. They only have to be unemployed for 1 day.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, I think that, to be honest, I think it very much would come, as you say, it does depend on maybe their relationship with their work coach, but I would imagine that that's something that will be monitored within DWP.
Yep. Yeah, we wouldn't want it to be a revolving door program where a young person just revolves out one door and back into another organisation for a further 6 months at national minimum wage. Hopefully through the 6 months we'll have had enough development to progress into a job instead of using it as one scheme to another scheme. Could a CGS placement? Yes.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
We don't know the answer. I think that's probably the easiest way to say it. We don't honestly know the answer. I mean, I think it would probably be not that straightforward because of the eligibility criteria for Kickstart. So because a young person needs to be on universal credit, at risk of becoming long-term unemployed, and obviously they need to be unemployed for 1 day, so they would actually need to leave their, you know, it wouldn't be necessarily a straightforward transfer. But given the young people that we're currently with through CGS, because obviously those young people are a lot more disadvantaged in the jobs market than the young people that the Kickstart program is looking to work with. So through the progress of CGS, they could be deemed as one of that group. So I don't want to say absolutely yes, and at the same time I don't want to say no. So we will be asking that question.
It is an interesting one that's cropped up, and not just about CGS but other schemes that are out there, and certainly DWP seem to be quite flexible and laid back about it, but the reality of that's quite different, you know, in terms of the eligibility side of things. They want to make it a scheme whereby if someone then goes, you know, takes up an apprenticeship or goes off to does something else, then there can be movement between those things. Obviously not to be double funded by at the same time, but they do want to make it as fluid as possible. But yes, the practicalities of that might be prohibitive. I'm not sure, but we will keep pressing, because you're not the first person to ask that question. Okay. Nothing more open questions. A few things in the chat, but more just feedback and things for us to take away with us. And yep, I think we'll just sign off now. If that's okay. One more just here. Hold on.
Answer. Michael, you're on mute again.
Just going to. Due to the schemes, they're not an expert from the employer to keep them employed. I think, Darren, because it is a job creation scheme, the aim is to ensure that the young person gets a valuable 6 months work experience and hopefully progress from there. We know that probably in the present climate, retention isn't going to be possible for all employers, but we would hope that from the support that you give a young person, they're better equipped to get another job. And maybe if things do change within organisations like yourselves, you will have capacity maybe to offer some young people a job to retain them. So I suppose that's the aim. It's to keep young people in work and to make sure that they don't face long-term unemployment.
Good stuff.
Can I just check, did somebody answer John Connell's question? And that was around the pipeline.
I never saw that. I had a couple of questions from John.
Is that about the one, is it a job?
Yes.
Yes, I was advised that it is classed as a job.
Excellent.
Oh, yes, I did reply to John regarding something about it being a job. Yeah, I'm just scrolling through because I've had a few questions from John.
Yeah, good, good. John, I mean, one of the things, because I'm assuming, John, this question was being asked with around, because it's around maybe the employability fund and the outcomes with regards to the employability fund. So although it might be classed as a job, it might all depend on SDS's take on it. Because the situation that we had with the Community Jobs Scotland jobs, where although it was classed as a job, the outcome funding was varied for the actual training organisations. Now, this was due to the fact that the CGS opportunities are Scottish Government funded, so it might be looked at differently because these are UK government funded. So again, we can ask that question of SDS and see if they've got any further thought on it.
I think the other thing that John was concerned about is that they've got an employability program for 16 and 17-year-olds. None of them are in universal credit, and they're not on universal credit. So, and Elaine Stewart had the same question about young people at 16, 17. How are we going to work with them if they're not accessing UC? Is there going to be any dispensation?
The DWP are they've started conversations with regards to that, and that's something that we can carry forward with them as well, because we know a lot of organisations that do work with under 18s and have that opportunity because of the work that they've done with them, in terms of knowing that they're ready, work ready. So we can certainly carry that conversation forward with DWP as well, to see, because they're looking at options and in ways that they can do it. So whether that means that they're going to work with other intermediary organisations, that work with the young people, that may well be one that they do. Nope. Tony has just asked if other benefits such as income support and ESA are eligible. At this point, the answer is no. They are specifically just looking at universal credit.
Okay, I think I'm going to wrap up now. We're decreasing down to about 30 numbers or so from the 180 that were here. Lots and lots of questions there. You've tipped the 100 questions answered, Michael. One just last one coming. We'll take this last one, Michael, if you want. And
I was just about, I'll type it, Tony, but my understanding is that legacy JSA is not universal credit, so they wouldn't be eligible. But we will take all these questions forward to DWP. Okay. Thank you very much. That was really good for us as well to learn about the types of queries that people have. We will keep adding to our frequently asked questions. We will also make a note to get back to people that have already submitted registrations to us who are wondering about the status of their applications. We'll make contact and we'll keep in touch with developments as they go. I hope you found this informative and useful, and over and out. Thanks everyone. Cheerio.
Thank you.